Welcome to The Great Detour. I'm Jess, your host. In this podcast, we talk about life's unplanned paths, those experiences that challenge and transform us in ways we never expected. Through honest conversations, my guests and I share inspiring stories and practical advice to help you navigate your own journey. I hope these stories inspire you to trust your path, embrace change with resilience, and step into your most authentic, empowered self. Welcome to The Great Detour. I am so excited for today's episode. I have with me an incredible guest and friend. If you have not already heard of him, Jason Lacayo is a decorated police officer, endurance athlete, podcast host, mental health advocate, especially amongst the first responder community, and basically all the things. I'm probably missing a million other things, but I hope I'm doing you justice. But Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so excited. So Jason and I met through our local running community. And
shout out to Dubset Collective.
Yes, shout out to Dubset. And, we immediately clicked. Yeah. And I think it's not only because we're podcasters and we're into fitness, but we really do speak the same language, yes, especially as it pertains to mental health and growth and personal development. So I think it was only a matter of time before the universe brought us together.
I agree. We kind of talk about that often, like the universe aligns people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. And it's just really funny to be welcoming you to the show when we're in your studio right now. So Jason hosts...
Hey, man, that's the way the world works, right?
Yeah, Jason hosts an incredible podcast called the Rooted Progress Podcast.
Yes.
And was gracious enough to lend the studio out for the day. And I'm just psyched because I do most of my recordings remotely, and there's just such a different energy when we're in person.
Live is so much better just because you get more of a feel for the interview.
Exactly.
Because human connection, I think, is something that you need, especially during a podcast. Not saying that like when you do a remote, it's not the same, but it's just a little bit different when you can kind of read body language, and it's just a lot better that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree, because I've done remote and I prefer in person better.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you again for
no problem, anytime.
Giving us the space. So I wanted to start off today, as I was just giving your introduction, you do so many things and you're involved in so many areas. So I'm curious, you live such a multifaceted life. Mm-hmm. And is there any type of common thread or through line throughout all those things that provides the drive behind all of that?
I'm a big Kobe guy, right? So it's just trying to be 1% better than I was the day before. So I don't look at other people as like competition. I just kind of worry about my journey and my like level of growth. So just waking up every day and just trying to be 1% better than I was the day before.
No, I love that 1% better, because that's how we grow, right? It's not making these huge leaps, but just taking those small steps and just trying to be the best and most embodied versions of ourselves as possible. So I love that you wake up with that mindset every morning.
Yeah, for sure.
So you are a police officer, and I think the life of a police officer is interesting in and of itself. It's so different from the work I've grown up doing. I think what is even more unique about you is your advocacy work for mental health within the first responder community. So something I would love to know more about is, what is the type of work you're doing there? How did that start? And even to start off that question, just tell us a little bit about what the job of a first responder entails. Because I think a lot of us who aren't in law enforcement, we hear that term thrown around, but we don't really understand like the gravity of that job and the stress that job.
Yes, that's a great question. So what I currently do now is I'm a detective who's assigned to the mental health outreach team, which is attached to our strategic initiatives unit. So basically what I do is I go out into the community and I look for like unhoused people or homeless and try to get them attached to resources, as well as people who have substance abuse issues or are mentally ill. So my job is just to connect them through services and kind of make sure that they're following through with the aftercare. But you can only work as hard as your client is, right? I can't force you to do something that you aren't willing to do for yourself on your own. Sometimes, people need a little bit of assistance, and I'm just there as like, the guiding light in that aspect, right? I can get you to where you need to be, but you have to continue to do the work on your own. I can check up every 2 weeks, but if you're not making your meetings, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then that's completely on you. That's what I'm currently doing. I'm also a peer supporter. So any kind of traumatic incident or anything like that, they call us in to kind of unpack that. That kind of leads us to the whole like job responsibilities of a police officer, right? Or a first responder. It's tough because we're asked to wear many hats, and you can go into one call and you can be a mediator. You can go into another call and you can be an enforcer. You can go into another call and just be an ear for someone to just listen. And so it's tough. It's not easy. We see a lot of traumatic things. And I think a lot of people don't understand the amount of trauma a police officer sees in their career. So they say the average adult has 2 to 3 critical incidents, right? Or traumatic situations in their life. The average police officer in their career has 188 critical incidents. So you can just only imagine, that huge difference, right? And if the average person is seeing 2 to 3 in their life, I've personally had 2 to 3 in one shift. So that kind of gives you some insight. So my job is just to make sure I'm giving guys the tools to function, in the first responder space, proper stress mitigation tools, things of that nature, because with anything, right, people have vices, right? So, alcohol is a social lubricant. Caffeine is a social lubricant as well. And it's also something that can become extremely addictive. So I just try to make guys aware of those things and just have them be aware of what they're putting in their body, what they're surrounding themselves with, and, just try to help them kind of mitigate that.
Do you find that seeing all of those traumatic things, both for yourself and for the community, does it desensitize you over time, or is it something that you just bottle up?
Honestly, it kind of depends how you grew up. So I grew up in Yonkers, which is a pretty busy city. Mm-hmm. And so me seeing like violent things wasn't something that was out of the ordinary. So I learned how to kind of detach myself from it and normalize it, if you will, even though it's not natural to normalize violence. So it's different from person to person. I feel like some people deal with it in specific ways and some people deal with it in other ways. It's just, I'm the type of person where I can go to a pretty gruesome scene and kind of just push forward from there. Some people can't. But I feel like the more you do this, the more it weighs on you. Because I remember like younger Jason dealing with certain calls and just kind of pushing forward. And then now, just through life experience and seeing different things in life, it's changed how I respond to certain situations.
Yeah, I'm sure it builds up over time.
Yeah, you don't realize it, but it happens.
Yeah. How has the law enforcement community responded to, these type of initiatives to talk about mental health? Because historically, I feel like you're in a career path where you're expected to have this exterior of strength, grit, equanimity. Mm-hmm. So suddenly to be talking about, oh, I'm depressed or I'm anxious or I'm having struggles with my mental health. Has there been a positive response, or what's been the response to that? It's
been positive. The culture's changing. I've been a cop for 20 years. And initially when I came in, it wasn't like that. We didn't talk about feelings. We didn't talk about the things that we saw. Actually, if you hang out with a bunch of like cops or firefighters, they make morbid jokes. And that's just part of the being able to compartmentalize what they've seen. You make light of it, just to kind of get through, your career, because, Mondays never look the same, right? So everything is always thrown at you and you have to learn how to push past it. And I feel like we never spoke about feelings. Now we kind of talk about, hey, you just saw something. Would you like to talk about it? We give people the option. It wasn't really a thing 20 years ago. I'm going to be 100% honest, but now it's changed. The culture's changing, which is good. It's something that we need to speak on because mental health is at like the forefront of a lot of things that are happening in our country right now. And so just addressing it has changed in the last, like I said, 20 years.
No, I think it's so important, and it is such an emphasis now, but especially for men. I think this is something that's been so much easier for women to talk about. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like it's the way we're socialized, the way our female friendships are built, that we're just more inclined to talk about our feelings and lean on one another. Yeah. But for men, I don't think that's always been the case. And I'm curious now for you, like, how do you see men struggling with their mental health, and like, how can we create spaces that are safe for men to talk about their mental health?
See, that's the tough part. I think a lot of men have been taught to bottle up everything. And the hard part with that is eventually there's going to be spillover. And it doesn't happen in a positive light, right? Either somebody gets to a point where they snap and they do something egregious, or they just shut down. And then, that's where mental breaks come. So it's tough to say, because I feel like a lot of men were just raised to not show feelings. Our primary objective in life is to like provide and protect. And so if you show weakness, it was almost frowned upon. I can't really say that there is a safe space for guys. Like, you have to kind of create that safe space for yourself. You have to figure out a person that you can confide in and, know that the things that you talk about with them stays in that circle. And they're also giving you tools to kind of help you deal with that. Because I feel like, if you cry in front of somebody, then they take that and use that against you at a later point, right? So you got to figure out, who you can be authentically yourself around. That's the tough part. So that's a great question. It's just hard to answer
Yeah.
because I hope I kind of landed in the area.
No,
of it,
totally.
But yeah, it's kind of tough for men. Trust me.
No, I understand that. And I can empathize with what you said about needing safe people. I've had that myself where you're open with somebody and then it bites you in the ass later. And you have to be careful about how vulnerable you are. So it's really being discerning about who you open up your heart to. But I think it's important for men to find communities of other men and solid male friendships. That's something I know women, we always have, is these female.
Women are great at it. Men, not so much.
Yeah. And so doing men's work and just finding communities where there are safe men and all are safe friendships where you guys can just talk to each other about like what's going on in your lives and just be open and vulnerable, because it makes a huge difference when you're having a tough time or a tough day, just to have friendships around you that you can rely on and trust and say, hey, I'm going through it this week, and just have somebody there to hold space for that.
It's tough. I was part of a men's group. We would meet every Wednesday via Zoom, and there were guys from all over the country. And I think that was great just because we were just talking about our just experiences, whether it be weekly or just life experience. And it's crazy how you can be in a room with several different men from different parts of the country and the experiences are all the same. It's a wild concept to think about that. And
does that make you feel less alone?
Absolutely. And I think that's more of a safe space for men. I feel like if someone's in a room and they say, hey, I experienced this, that, and the third, you're like, oh, wow, I'm not the only one. And I think that kind of creates a space where people kind of come out and they start talking about their issues and the things that they've seen and the things that they dealt with. So sometimes you just need a catalyst to kind of push you to be that person. So I feel like the average guy does better in a group like that, but they'll sit there for a while, body language, like arms crossed, and just, listening to what other people are saying. And then eventually you start to see them release a bit and then kind of open up.
Yeah, but it takes people like you who are brave enough and vulnerable enough to be open and talk about those things. So I love what you're doing and just kind of trying to destigmatize mental health with men and first responders, because it's something that we need to start talking about more often.
Absolutely.
And what you said before, struck a chord with me. You were saying how you guys are expected to be together and providers, men. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, is there anything that you wish that women better understood about men's struggles with mental health? Because I think that we expect that too. We expect that strength, that provider mentality. But at the same time, we're also looking for men who are emotionally available and emotionally vulnerable and all of those things. So I'm wondering, is there something that you guys wish that we better understood about what you guys are going through and what you're struggling with? I
think the answer to that is just have the ability to listen. I think most people don't want to hear if a man has a problem. It's so wild. A woman can have an issue and a guy's supposed to sit there and listen and understand and try to solve that, right? And most guys can't solve a woman's problems, but at least if you listen and you're an active listener, don't just listen to respond, listen to be an active listener and, help them, solve the issue. And if you can't help them, give them tools to try to help them. I feel like nobody wants to hear if I had a bad day. No one cares. It's like, you got to suck it up and push forward.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
Yeah, because I'm being 100% honest. Nobody cares if I have a rough day, right? So I have to learn how to, at the end of the day, put that shit somewhere and just kind of go forward, because people could care less if I had a bad day because they don't expect me to have a bad day. I can only speak for myself, right? Me and my personal experience. I'm known as this outgoing, happy-go-lucky guy, right? If I have a bad day, everybody's like, oh, what's wrong with you? Now, if I said what was wrong with me, would you sit there and actually listen to me? Probably not, because you don't care. Most people go through the motions during conversation. Hey, how's it going? How's your day? And they won't even care if you said, hey, well, if I said something crazy, like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about jumping off a bridge, I don't think anybody would even pay attention to that. They would just kind of go on with their day. So the best thing I can say is just listen and be an active listener and, try to give them positive ways to mitigate stress. I think, don't tell them they go have a drink or something,
Yeah.
But
that's not the first time I've heard that. I was actually on another show where we were talking about relationships, and this guy was saying how, women are nowadays asking for men to be emotionally vulnerable and emotionally available, but when they get it, do they actually want that? Are they turned off by that vulnerability? And so it's very interesting to hear you say that too, and to hear you say that you're just looking for somebody to hold space, not looking for somebody to solve your problems, but just to create space where it's safe to talk about what you're feeling. And I think, isn't that what we're all looking for?
Yeah.
And that's something I work on when I'm talking to friends, family members, whoever, and somebody's stressed out and telling me their problems. I don't try to solve their problems. I don't try to give advice. I just try to sit there and empathize and say, hey, you're not alone and I'm here. And sometimes just that presence can help co-regulate somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a game changer in my eyes. Like you said, just hold space. You know, having somebody you can converse with does wonders. And it has to be like a safe space, a judgment-free zone. You know, they're not going to take anything that you say and weaponize it later on and use it against you. You know, be someone's safe space.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So all of this work, I wonder if it has a personal side for you. You know, author, I believe it was Richard Bach, who said, we teach what we most need to learn. And that's certainly been the case in my life. I have a podcast on detours and transitions because my life has been nothing but detours and transitions. Yeah. And I'm wondering for you if you've had your own struggles with mental health and how that's played out in you helping others.
Yeah. 2017 was a monumental year for me as I had a severe bout with like depression and anxiety. So I've always suffered from anxiety and never knew what it was.
Same.
You know, never knew what it was. I used to have these like physiological responses. Like, you know, when you go on a roller coaster and it like climbs and you get that like knot in your stomach when it drops. Like the anticipation, knowing that that's going to come, I used to have that physiological response, that same feeling when, you know, I'd be in certain situations and never knew that that was anxiety until I sat down with a professional. They were like, yeah, dude, that's anxiety, you know, but, you know, you've managed to transform it and turn it, you know, and use it. Some people you allow it to kind of incapacitate them, but I've learned how to like push through that, and it kind of motivates me to like do stuff instead of letting it seize me up. So once I found out that was the situation, and then I remember I was in this funk for like, it was like 3 months where I just didn't feel like myself, and you know, I couldn't figure it out. And you sit down with a professional and they're like, oh bro, that's called depression, you know? Yeah. And I was like, wow, because I'd lost some weight and I wasn't eating like the way I was eating. I was still working out, which was a constant has always been like, I've always moved my body. When I was fighting depression, I was over exercising and not recovering. So like that's comes with it too. Once you like, yeah.
We need to talk about that more too. I see so many men doing that, throwing themselves into the gym, thinking it's solving their problems, but I think it's actually just a form of distraction. Yeah. It's a healthy distraction. I'll give it the better than drinking, but it's still a way to
but
not
have adverse effects as well, because you can hurt yourself to a point where, you know, you may be down for a couple of months. So it's a fine line, right? You know, once I figured out, you know, what the issue was, I started to do the work. And, you know, they gave me some tools, they gave me some books to read, they gave me some exercises, and it started to work. And I just sat down and I was like, yo, if I'm going through this, there's got to be tons of people going through it, you know? And you speak to anybody who was in my life around that time, no one would know that I was depressed. So like.
Very high functioning.
Yeah.
It's easy to hide, right?
Yeah. Because like I said, I've always been the person that was this like happy-go-lucky, jovial dude. So like even if I said I had an issue, nobody would even. Yeah. They're like, oh no, you'll get past it because you're just you. You know, you're this funny guy, you're this fun guy. So that's where my passion comes from, because I just, you know, if I was dealing with it and I've had some like pretty bad invasive thoughts, there has to be others who just are scared to speak about it. So I said, you know, let me just be the guy that kind of lays it all out there, and hopefully someone can find some inspiration in what I'm doing, and then they can go get themselves some help, you know?
No, that's great. I think we're all in this together. We need to be open and vulnerable, and it encourages others to do the same. Was there ever, I mean, you described some moments there, but was there ever like one big moment or even like a series of small moments that made you wake up? And like, for example, for me, it was probably like 2019, maybe like early 20. No, it was before the pandemic, where I was like really struggling in my marriage and things were just falling apart at the seams. I was just not doing well. And similar to you, I don't eat when I'm stressed and when I'm depressed. So I lost all this weight. And I remember going into work and people commenting on it, but they didn't think it was a bad thing. It was like, oh, you look so great. How did you lose that weight? You're looking so good. And I remember lying and saying, oh, it's just the Peloton. I'm doing a lot of the Peloton. And that was kind of a wake up moment for me, because I realized not only is it affecting my physical health, not only are people noticing, but I'm having to lie about it. And that was kind of just like this aha moment where I was like, something's got to give. Yeah. And like, that's like when I went into therapy after that and started like doing the work, but it took a lot to get there. And it took like all of those things just to shake me awake and say, girl, you're not doing okay. I need to make some shifts in your life. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the end of 2017 going into 2018, I had like a moment with God, I call it. Like I don't talk about this a lot, but like I just was fed up, right? And I was like, well, what if I wasn't here? You know what I mean? Like got to that point, you know? I remember
I would take this certain route home. It's the same route every day. And while I'm having these thoughts, my mom calls me and she's like, hey, and it's late.
Moms are so intuitive.
Yeah,
She knew.
It was late. Yeah, it was late. So, she's like, hey, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, Mom, all right. She's like, I just wanted to check on you. So weird. And that was like an eye-opening moment for me, because then I was like, well, maybe I got some more stuff to do here. And it was weird because that night I went home, I went to bed, and I never watched TV in my room, like ever. And I remember waking up that morning and turning on the TV, and I watched this movie. It happened to be on this movie called The Shack. And if you know about the book, the movie's pretty dope. I'm more of a visual guy than I am as far as like kinesthetic, like reading wise. Because I could read a book, but if you give me visuals, I can kind of grasp it a little bit more. I remember waking up, and it has to be divine intervention. And, waking up and I'm like, turn on the TV, and it's at the specific part of the movie. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But I started watching the movie, and it was like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And basically, like, there's a part of the movie or a part of the book where he has to learn how to forgive himself. I think that was the moment I was like, all right, you got to get past this, forgive yourself for whatever happened, and start doing the work to get better. And that was like the catalyst for change.
That gave me goosebumps, you saying that part about your mom, because that stuff, I see it. It's happened in my own life all the time. And that was actually one of the questions I had for you, is what role, because I know you're a spiritual person, what role did your faith have in your own healing and growth journey?
Yeah, I've always felt like I was connected to God, always from a young child. Just some of the things I've seen, some of the things I've experienced. My mom was a very faith-based, faith-driven woman. And so she was the one that kind of gave me my foundation as far as faith. And when I couldn't help myself, God helped me. So that's why I feel like I'm a very spiritual person, and I say spiritual over religious, because I do believe I believe in God and I read the Bible, but to be a believer is to know you have flaws and you're going to fall short. I think a lot of people think that to be a believer, you have to be perfect. And there's no such thing as perfection. And so, just learning how to give myself grace and know that, in my darkest moments, I can turn to a higher power, and a higher power has me. There's a reason why I'm here, because I've been in some crazy situations and I can't explain to you how I got out of it, how I'm here breathing and talking to you right now, present. I know that there's something bigger and greater than you and I that has me here. So that makes me very, very, very rooted in my faith.
No, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I function very similarly. And if my detours have taught me anything, it's that there is so much more than this physical world that we're in. And I always had this mindset where I'm just doing this on my own and I have to figure things out on my own. But everything that has happened to me, there have been synchronicities, soul helpers, as I like to call them, people who come in. It might just be for a blip, or it might be for the rest of your life, but who help you through that difficult time and help your soul's evolution and growth. And I've seen it so much that now I'm in this season of my life where it's just kind of surrender and trust, where not that I want to sit on my ass and do nothing. Like, I am going to listen to my intuition, do what I have to do, take aligned action, but also trust that the universe is going to meet me where I'm at, and that I'm not in this alone. And I have to say, it's been a very liberating feeling, leaning into that knowing and trusting that I'm not just by myself in this.
Yeah, when you say surrender, a lot of people take that word and they give it a negative connotation. But it's not. It's, in order for you to truly live and evolve, you have to surrender. You don't have control of certain things. Once you realize that, you can control how you respond to things, right? But I think it comes down to, there's situations that happen in life, and at that moment in time, you may be like, this sucks, but that probably saved you from something far worse. And once you understand that it's bigger than you, then I think life starts to get a little bit easier, just to have that kind of understanding. But you need to surrender in order to have that mindset. And that's the tough part, because people want to control, and they want to, some people get hyper fixated on goals and things like that, right? And if they don't get it, it kind of throws them off the rails, right? You see? But what happens with that is if it's what's for you is for you, it will never miss you.
I believe that.
I think some people, there's things in life that we want, but we don't necessarily need. Right. And that want is what creates misery for a lot of people, because you may think, I need this, or I want this rather, I want this car, I want this house, my relationship to be like this, but that's out of your control, right? It's something bigger than you and I that's kind of lining us up and setting us up. But, you know, in order to do that, you have to surrender. And most people just don't want to give a higher power that control.
Yeah, it is hard and I'm not always successful at it, but I notice the more I lean into it, the more beautiful synchronicities happen in my life.
Yeah.
It's also like takes the stress off too. So it's kind of nice. Yeah, definitely. So you were just talking about things not going according to plan, but actually like leading you into places you're meant to be. And that's what I talk about all the time on the show is how detours allow us to be the most authentic and empowered versions of ourselves. For you, were there any instances in your life where things maybe didn't go according to plan and you ended up somewhere better than you expected?
Yeah, I mean, there have been several things work-wise, but even like in my personal life, though, relationships, things like that just kind of brought me to a place where I had to do work, you know, and it sucks, but it has to be done. You know, that's why that word surrender is such a powerful word to me, because once you realize that in order to grow, you got to surrender. That's where life starts to improve. And that's when life gets really uncomfortable, but that's where you grow in those uncomfortable spaces. So just taking those situations and instances and not making myself the victim, you know, holding myself accountable and saying, hey, well, maybe I need to change some things. Because sometimes you can't always point the finger. Sometimes you got to look within yourself and say, maybe I'm part of the problem. Like if there's a consistency in your life, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, and no matter where you go in life, these problems follow you. You might want to look at yourself, right? You might want to say, hey, maybe I need to change something about myself. And that's what I had to do. You know, without my failures, I wouldn't have any victories.
Oof, I love that.
Yeah, so, you know, I had to use that.
It takes a lot, though, to look within yourself, but you have to do it with grace. Like you said before, none of us are perfect. We're not here to be perfect. And it's a process of growth and evolution. So to take a moment to look inward and say, how am I interacting in this dynamic, in this relationship, in this situation that's not serving me and that's not working anymore? And how can I go about it differently? It takes a lot of courage, but that's how we grow. So
It's scary, I'll tell you that.
It is. It's absolutely scary. So for you, what have been like the most helpful or impactful tools in your growth journey, in your healing journey?
Journaling.
Journaling.
Yeah.
Me too.
Journaling has helped me so much because they say that comparison is the thief of joy, but it's not. Sometimes it kind of gives you a little bit of insight of how much you've grown or how far you've come. Because I think you forget sometimes when you're in the middle of a storm, you forget that, you know, you weren't where you're exactly at right now. It's wild because like some people get into situations and they forget like, oh, you know, life sucks right now. This, that, whatever. And then if you look at where they were a year prior and you're like, oh my God, so much growth has happened. Sometimes, you know, when you set out to accomplish things, there's things that knock you off your pivot. But as long as you keep your balance, you should be good to go. And I feel like a lot of people just can't see past their nose when they're in the middle of some nonsense that's happening in their life. And, you know, just kind of hunkering down and saying, you know, let me just trust the process, have this undying faith that I know that whatever I'm going through is going to help me grow, you know, and just push forward. But it's not easy, like we always talk about, right? It's not easy by any means.
That's great, though. I actually did this the other day where I took out some of my old journals from like 2022, 2023. And it's wild to see the things I was worried, like the dating I was worried about back then and the things and how much I've evolved and grown since then. And it does give you a sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
And I also find that with journaling, it's a way for me to tap into my inner knowing and my intuition. So I think deep inside of us, we all have an inner compass. Call it God, call it whatever you want, but there is this inner knowing. And so sometimes by writing and writing and writing, like I'll ask a question and then I'll really see how I feel about it and like what comes out. And it leads me to really cool places sometimes. So journaling's been incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Too.
I went back like actually a month ago. I went back and looked at a journal I had from like 2019. I was like, wow, I've grown so much, you know, and I'm grateful for it because the journaling was kind of like basically it was keeping track of my progress. I would give myself like a moral report card at the end of every day. I don't do that so much now, but I used to do it.
That's interesting, a moral report card.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because I feel like, so things that, you know, good humans should do, right? So, you know, just normal stuff, right? Like, hey, good morning, good afternoon, but actually like being intentional when you're asking these things. Did you do something kind for someone today? When someone did something to you, how did you respond? Like I was using those kind of things to be the guideline for the grade. I was never an A. I think if you're an A, then you're just you're lying to yourself. Because, somebody will cut you off, you flip them the bird,
Yeah.
or like someone will say something to you, and you have this like thought, well, maybe I should say this to this person. Not saying you got to walk around and be this like divine being all the time, but like it kind of pushes you to become a better human being and treat others with grace and kindness. I was not nice before, so it was like now I can see like, oh, all right, 2018, I was this guy, and then now, here we are in 2025, approaching 2026, and I'm just a different human being. So, it was just journaling has helped me, be a better person, and I have something I can go back and cross-reference it with. So I always tell people you should try it. Even if you don't like to write, I used to do voice notes.
Me too.
Yeah,
we're the same. We are cut from the same cloth.
I had a whole
audio
thing of voice-
journaling.
Yeah, audio journaling, because I would drive home from work, and that would be like my time to decompress, and I would kind of talk about my day and my thoughts and what happened, what didn't happen, and then I went to go look back, and I'm like, wow, man, I used to just log.
Yeah.
And I went back, and I'm like, oh, I'm such a different person now. I'm so happy that I did this, because I went back and thought about certain things, and and I spoke about things that I wanted or things that I didn't want. And I can now look back and say, I changed that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I used to do it when I first got divorced. I remember like I had such an urge to like call my ex, and my friend was like, first of all, do not call him.
Do not do that.
She's like, think about how you're gonna feel after you call him. But what I would do is I would do voice notes and pretend I was talking to him. So it was very cathartic. I would get all the feelings out into a voice note and never once called him. So it was
you need a place
cool.
to get that out. And that's what I try to tell people.
Yeah.
You got to figure out a way to get that out. The best thing you can do is start there. I always tell people, start somewhere.
Yeah.
Start somewhere, because if you don't, that thing, it all gets bottled up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what scares me, because I think a lot of people deal with so much. If it gets bottled up, that spillage can become devastating. You might do something you might regret. 10 seconds can change the rest of your life. And that's just a split-second decision to do something based off of built-up thoughts. So I try to tell people, start somewhere, get those feelings out, get those thoughts out. Then you can kind of start anew, and then, I don't know, kind of work on it from there. But get it out. I always say that.
Yeah, energy really does get stored in the body, so it is important to get it out. And that brings me to my next question, because I know this is an important part of your journey, is fitness. So I'm curious for you, do you see a parallel between physical training and mental resiliency?
Oh, absolutely. I always say this, right? You could find out a lot about a person by the way they train. Because to train and to work out, you have to be intentional, right? You got to wake up every day, and you have to be rooted in something, you got to be regimented. So the fact that you wake up and you allocate whatever the amount of time you do, on a daily basis, and it doesn't just stop in the gym, it trickles out, right? So you have to put the proper things in your body. You got to sleep. It's an overall wellness thing. And I feel like the three things you need in your life to have balance is physical, mental, and spiritual health. If you have those three things, I feel like you can kind of attack the world and be in a good place. But if one of those things are off, you don't have homeostasis, and then it kind of creates chaos in your life. So learning how to balance these things, but it's all underneath like one umbrella. Like overall wellness includes those three things. So learning how to like manage those three things is, I think, key to having a successful life, because if you don't feel good physically, you're not going to feel good emotionally. You're definitely not going to feel good spiritually. So just trying to keep all those things in line. But yeah, I mean, I need fitness. I'm a way nicer person after I work out.
Yeah, me too.
Like my days are so much more better after I work out.
Yeah.
Recently I had to like switch some things around as far as like training. And, I'm up at like 4:30 in the morning, and then I'm training by like 5:15. But I know that it's helped me. As much as I hate it, I hate getting up at that time, but it definitely helps my day.
Of course.
Because I know I got it done. So now whatever else I need to do for the rest of the day, it can get done. I got the most important thing to me out of the way. And I always say, in order to be selfless, you have to be a little bit selfish, right? Do the things for you,
100%.
right? Fill your cup before you can go out into the world and fill others.
Yeah.
So like, that's why fitness was so important to me, because I was able to kind of take care of me first, because it always goes back to like, no one cares, right? So let me just take care of me first, and then I can go out and be the best version of me.
Yeah.
So
fitness has been the one consistent thing through all my detours. Like, I've always hit the gym, gone for a run, and it's just been that one thing that was like catharsis, and I can get my feelings out, and it's really saved me in a lot of ways. But I love what you were saying about it being this holistic type of wellness. It's not just the physical part. And that was something that took me a little bit of time, because at first I was, going for my runs, doing my strength training, but then I'd still go out to the bars with my friends and like drink a ton over the weekend.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't feeling good. And so over time, it was like I was focusing on my fitness. Then I redefined my relationship with alcohol. And I was just like, why am I just like throwing back these
How was that for you, trying to redefine your
It was amazing. So last year, for the majority of the year, I didn't drink.
Mhm.
And it was a game changer. My sleep was better. My skin was better. I felt better. I was more energized. And I said, wow, like, what was I doing before? And not that I ever had a problem with alcohol in the traditional sense, but I was just going out and being so unintentional about the way I was drinking. It was just like, let me throw back some high noons with my friends on a Saturday night. And now I still drink, but it's much more intentional. So for example, I love red wine. I grew up, my dad worked in the wine business. I love a good glass of red. So if I go out, have a plate of pasta, I really want to enjoy it, a glass of red wine. It's more like that mentality. And I'll have one glass. It's just very different. But that was something that it took me time to get there.
Yeah. So I haven't touched alcohol in close to 2 years.
Wow.
And and I remember initially, it was never difficult for me. The problem was like the judgment. You go out and be like, hey, you good? Like, no, I am fine. Are you okay?
No, it bothers people. Did you notice that too?
Or like, bro, did you go to like rehab or something? Like, whoa, that's an extreme.
Yeah.
But no, it just wasn't serving me anymore.
I love that.
Right. And I was like, I went to a wedding and I got hammered. And I was like, I was down for like 3 days. I guess when you get older, it takes a little longer to recover.
Oh, 100% it does.
So, it beat me up to a point where I was like, I don't feel good, man. And I don't want to do this anymore. So, after the first month, I was like, wow, what was I doing? Like you said, sleep, skin, just everything changed. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to drink anymore, and people were just like, but then now like people know.
Yeah.
So they're just like, all right, I'll have like an athletic brewing co or something if I go out.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, they're great, and it kind of, you can sit down and be one of the guys or, one of the girls, whatever, and just kind of chill out. But I just always ask people that because I struggled with it a little bit in the beginning because of the judgment and the criticism, but I eventually grew out of it because I realized it was just so much better for me.
I have to say that the people I respect and admire the most in my life, none of them drink. So there's something there. I'm just keeping my eye on it. I might get back on that.
I'm not knocking anybody who drinks and then do you, but like if you want to, have a Heineken or something or, whatever, and drink your Heinekens, do what you do. But, I feel like for me, it just stopped serving me. So I got out of it.
There is something that takes you to the next level. There's something there for sure.
Yeah, because now like my sleep, and that's something I wanted to work on so much. My sleep hygiene was so bad before. I used to sleep like 4 hours a night just from work. Yeah, because I used to work from 6 p.m. to like 4 a.m. Yeah. So I was on my Goggins vibe, and it's like, sleep is for the weak. So I tried to get up and train, and I just would do it on like 4.5. Some of my best performances were done on like 3.5, 4 hours of sleep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. But
you're another level, you're another breed.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Jason, this has been an incredible conversation. I have one last question for you. Yeah. So I know that retirement is around the corner.
Hey.
Which is probably like both daunting and exciting at the same time. And I'm wondering, how does purpose and success look like for you in this next chapter of your life as you're preparing to retire?
That's a phenomenal question. I just want to be able to go out and help people. I got a few things lined up. Nothing in the law enforcement space. I want nothing to do with this profession when I'm done. Yeah. I did my time. My purpose in life is to help others. Once I figure out a way to do it and, make it work out in a monetary sense, then I know I'm fully living in my purpose. Yeah. Just taking the gifts that God gave me and going out and helping others and monetizing that. And I'm kind of like going down that path right now. Keep my fingers crossed that these things that I've put into place are starting to work itself out. But yeah, I'm going to be doing something in like the wellness space and just giving back. That's the name of the game for me right now, because I'll be able to wake up every day and have like an enthusiasm to go to work. Not saying I hate my job right now, but just to be able to kind of do it on my terms, it's going to be groundbreaking for me.
So. Oh, that's so exciting. I can't wait to see where you go with things. Well, Jason, tell my listeners where they can find out more about you, your podcast.
The Real Jumpman J on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. You can find me there. I have a podcast called the Rooted Progress Podcast. I also do Inside the Labyrinth podcast with Reps for Responders, which is a not-for-profit that I work for, which helped me get into this space. So shout out to Friends for Recovery Westchester for helping us get this spot. They've been so great and gracious to us. So I just want to make sure that they get their just due, because then we wouldn't have this space. And so, that's where you can find me. Tune into the podcast. We got some great stuff coming down. So
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jason. This
Thank
was
you, Jess. This was a
such a great
phenomenal interview. I
No.
appreciate you taking the time and hanging out today,
Oh.
chatting with me.
I appreciate you so much. I just love everything you're about, everything you're doing, and I wish you nothing but continued success.
Thank you so
in the
much.
future. Thanks for listening to The Great Detour. If you're enjoying the show, I'd love if you could leave a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really does help the show have a greater impact. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Have your own detour story? You can share it with me by visiting thegreatdetour.com or The Great Detour on Instagram. Thanks for taking this journey with me.